I make a motion that we approve the minutes.
Okay, I have a
I'll second it.
motion by Sharon and Paul seconded it. Any discussion on the minutes? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Minutes are approved. State ethics disclosure statement is the second item. Sharon Emery has listed a disclosure of a conflict of interest form, although there is no conflict of interest, but
That's not in our packet, Larry, is it?
no, then it's not.
Okay.
If anybody wants to take a look at it,
Yeah, what's this in reference to? Is
The
that
the
water
reference
department?
to the water department, I
Yeah.
called the state ethics committee to explain the situation, and they said there was no conflict of interest, but that this form needed to be filled out and to be given to the person that appointed me, which is
Town moderator?
the town moderator.
Right.
Joan Peterson, and I gave a copy to the town clerk because she keeps a file of
Yeah.
those. And Debbie has a copy, and I thought as I would also give one to Larry to have
Yeah,
in
good.
his files.
right, it's basically stating that Sharon's son, Mark, is on the water board.
He receives no compensation at all for being on the water board.
Right.
Just so
So
that,
did they give you a verbal okay? Or
Yes.
or they just said disclose this? and
yeah, he
it's-
said just as,
Yeah.
that there's no problem and to just do this.
Does that exempt
Thank
you,
you.
Sharon, from water department issues at
No,
all?
no, no.
Everything is
I can do,
fine?
it says I can do anything.
You
I can't do the fire
Fire
department.
department, yeah.
Okay,
But I can do this, because he receives no compensation,
Station.
there's no, I have several copies at home, so I don't.
okay.
Well, I guess I make a recommendation, I mean, a motion that we just file this in our files, accept it and put it in our files.
Okay. I don't know whether we need to approve it or not, but let's go ahead and,
For the record.
for the record,
Yeah, second.
have a second.
Second.
Second, Janet. Any other discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 I abstain.
Okay, move on to item number 4, the Triton budget. I have submitted to you a letter that I would read tomorrow evening as a private citizen. I think it would have a little more weight if we could have the Finance Committee approve the letter, maybe with modifications as you so see fit.
Do we want to read this into the minutes, or just read it so the public can hear it? Because I haven't had time to.
Okay, I'll read it into the minutes. Proposed fiscal year operating budget. Proposed budget is unacceptable to the town of Rowley. At what point, with over 14-year decline in enrollment, does the Triton budget decrease? In 2003, the Rowley share of the Triton budget was $5,493,637,000. Rowley enrollment was 1,112 students for an average cost of $4,940 per student. For 2017, Raleigh's projected share of the Triton budget is $9,302,361 for a decreased enrollment of 815 students and an average cost of $11,414 per student. The Triton school budget has continued a yearly increase over these 14 years, and even looking at the last 5 years in which the rest of the country has been experiencing an economic downturn, recession, depression, the Triton school budget has increased 22%. Further, Raleigh is subsidizing those students who choice into Triton at a cost of only $5,000 per student. Again, at what point, with over a 14-year decline in enrollment, does the Triton school budget decrease? Following the guidelines of your budget as stated on page 2, I visited the Triton website to obtain the fiscal year 15 budget. The starting point for the fiscal year 17 proposed budget. The Triton site listed on the fiscal year 15 budget was $37,254,480. However, other places listed the budget as $39,763,948. Operating expenses, general and debt. $39,783,983. School site and DESC summary, and $39,851,406 Triton Regional School District logical sum. From one of these numbers, the starting point is, quote, minus the $1.5 million in services cut for fiscal 16. What this has to do with the fiscal 15 budget is beyond comprehension. It is unclear what the starting point is and how a reduced enrollment coupled with the level services guidelines results in a 3.38% increase in the operating budget. Again, at what point with over 14-year decline in enrollment does the Triton school budget decrease? The budgeting process should include a dialogue with the three towns, and the fact that no district communications committee meetings were held since October 2015 is unacceptable, and the fact as referenced in the February 11th, 2016 district communications committee meeting as, quote, my bad, unquote, is dismissive and not conducive to a dialogue. Section 15 of the Communications Committee reads, quote, a committee comprised of one select person, one finance member, and one school committee member from each town, and the superintendent shall be organized for the purpose of establishing a means of town district communications. This committee is solely for the exchange of information. Meetings shall be convened on the minimum of a quarterly basis, unquote. These meetings must be resumed to prevent such a dichotomy between the school and the towns. Even the state of Massachusetts has recognized the dramatic drop in enrollment by reducing the foundation budget by $900,944. Yet you are asking that the towns not only make up this deficit, but also raise an additional $938,420. I must also point out that Raleigh was the first town to support the Triton Stadium project. We have and are supporting the Pine Grove renovation and have appropriated funds for the boiler repair at Pine Grove, as well as supported various projects at Pine Grove. The town continues to support Triton and acknowledges that the children are our future and the budget, quote, is what it is, unquote. Nevertheless, survival trumps all. Raleigh is facing overrides for a combined police fire services building and the funding for the entire Pine Grove engineering study, a $90,000 increase in Whittier's assessment, an increase in the Essex agricultural assessment, as well as nominal increases for Raleigh's level services. A word of caution, the people of Raleigh supported a stadium, not an athletic field devoid of bleachers, etc. Any deviation from the stadium would void the original warrant article acceptance and necessitate another town vote. Our fire and police departments have been very understanding and cooperative in the past and have understood the budget constraints and are participating in the budgeting process for fiscal 17. The continued rise in the Triton school budget, despite the level service and the drop in enrollment, may cause a reduction in force in the fire and police department staffing directly attributed to the Triton increase. Again, at what point, with over a 14-year decline in enrollment, does the Triton school budget decrease? That's my personal comments.
But the biggest thing is in terms of why Raleigh is getting hit is because the Newbury has had the largest drop in the enrollment, and Raleigh, we're paying, in fact, Newbury is, we're paying, double, triple, the percentage that Newbury is because, and and that's the main reason is because of the enrollment. Newbury's enrollment has gone down, and ours hasn't gone down as spiked down as much. So it's the overall increase is about 3% for, from Triton's budget from last year to this year, or like 2.8 or something like that. But Raleigh's share is like 6.5%, and that's primarily because of the assessment and the way it's done, that the calculation is made. So, that explains why there's such a, a disproportionate share for Raleigh from last year to this year. And,
Well, it explains the disproportionate share, but Raleigh's enrollment has decreased.
And so has the other towns, but Raleigh's enrollment has not decreased as much as Newbury's.
But the fact
But
that they're charged.
Triton's school budget hasn't decreased.
Well, you're never going to, because you know what the biggest budget buster for the Triton schools is?
Special
Is the special
education.
needs.
Special
I mean,
education.
special education has gone
Half a
through the
billion
roof,
dollars.
and the state has flatlined it, and like special needs have gone up like triple.
More than that.
But I'm just saying is that, if you take special needs, I think there was one student, they mentioned that there was,
$300,000.
$300,000
for one student, yeah.
I mean, these are costs that really is not within the control of Triton. They can't do anything about that. They're handcuffed. The state, the story is the state hasn't, kept up with the reimbursement that, that they said they would, and the schools are left holding the bag.
80% of the school budget is teachers. It's employment. I mean, it's only 20% that.
Yeah, even
is
if you
the-
figure like payroll, if you take the average, cost of living increase, if it's like 2.5%, and the teachers get like another 2% step increase, where salaries make up close to 80% of the budget, there's 4.5% right then and there. That's a normal progression, or at least over 4. So if overall the Triton budget increased less than 3% from last year to the year before, which I think is fairly reasonable. But we're feeling the blunt of it because of the fact that our enrollment hasn't gone down like Newbury's has. So the assessment is what's hurting us this year.
But Peter, we can't
You
afford
know?
it. We don't have the
Well,
money.
I know, but I'm just giving you the
Yeah, we
facts. I'm
understand
telling
that,
you
yeah.
the situation that, you know,
But
I mean, did you hear what they said? Did you hear what Farmer or Brian Forget said at the, was it last week, the meeting?
Yeah.
Well, like that,
Yeah,
that they would have
February.
to, even if they cut $1 million off the school budget, that would only drop our share increase about 200,000. We would still have to pay, you know, more than,
What
you know,
we
the
wanted to
typical
pay.
3%.
Yeah.
Right, even if they cut $1 million off. And that's because of the way the numbers swing because of the assessment.
Yes,
And,
I
and that's a
realize that.
Major, major, major cut if they have to cut off $1 million from the school budget. You know, I mean, and it's still, and Raleigh's still gonna be paying, you know, an increase
Well,
that's
granted, you know,
above and beyond
Raleigh's
their,
gonna
you
have
know.
to pay what we're gonna have to pay. But, with decreased enrollment, you shouldn't have to increase the school budget.
Well, I think you need,
Well,
I
they are
don't think you
cutting
can take
teachers.
the bottom line at what it is. I think that there are certain factors that are just non-negotiable, like special education. So when you back
Yes.
that out, then, and you compare those numbers backed out year over year, that's where you could really do a comparison. But there is no negotiation with special education. So, you know, I clearly understand it's a lot of money, but I'm just saying that what we have here, it's, I don't think that it's enough information to say what the increases really have been year over year for what could be the budget or what should be the budget. Do you know what I mean?
Yes. Yeah, I understand where you're coming from. And, you know, the special education, we can't do anything about.
Right. And, I
Yeah,
mean, the
you know.
contracts with the teachers are set, and, I mean, I don't agree with, but the people that are retiring and staying on the health care before they're eligible for Medicare, I mean, that's costing a lot. So there are costs in there that they probably could look to reduce, but they won't, or they can't because of contracts.
And what they said that was disturbing at the last week's meeting was if they did try to negotiate with the unions, which they were gonna do, to try to reduce it maybe by 1%, that would be equal to about 300,000. They weren't gonna reduce the assessments to the towns if they got the 300. They were just gonna add back in the things that they were gonna cut. So it looks like, you know, they're doing what they have to do, which is to provide, you know, a good education for our students. But, you know, it makes it hard for us as trying to do our job
Right.
when, you know, we're two different factors and we're just not working with each
They're
other.
already, may I interrupt again, they're already gonna be laying off about 4 teachers. They're gonna be cutting 2 foreign language teachers, and they're gonna go into the elementary, and they're gonna be increasing the class size, and some of them are going up to like 20, 22 students. So they're getting cuts. It's just that Raleigh, if you wanna even make a little bit of an impact, you have to cut off $1 million from the school
Yeah,
budget,
yeah.
and that's only gonna drop at a small percentage. We're still gonna be paying more than the 2.8 or 3% that we wanna pay. That's the bottom line. That's the reality right now.
Yeah.
And it's the budget busted because of basically is because of special needs and even school transportation that, you know, they're not paying what they were supposed to pay in the original agreement. But, you know, I really don't, I mean, I think we're in a tough situation, but really it's because of the formula with the assessment that which they're talking about changing that. It won't help us this year, but will help us if they do a rolling average going forward in the future. Because, you know, this crazy,
No, even with the rolling average, it's not gonna help us.
it's not gonna help us this year,
They'll
I said, but it will help
it'll
us
stabilize the
going
number.
forward. We
more.
won't have this, you know, huge volatility that we have right now. It's not, I believe it won't help us this year, but I think overall it's a better way, because then we could, your other point is talking about the budgets, how we should be sitting in earlier. Well, I think you were at the last meeting, I think they explained the situation, the reason why is they didn't have any numbers to go, because they have to wait to hear from the, from the state to know. Even so, if they're discussing things, they don't even know, because they don't know which way the assessment's gonna come either. But if they do the rolling average, there'll be some predictability about what because there'll be a direct relation between the assessment and the enrollment. And if they know what the enrollment is, they don't have to know other variables too, because the other variables is, the demographics and all this other stuff is what is calculated into the assessment. So they'll be able to, if they go with the rolling average, they're gonna be able to sit with, with the committee earlier. That's what Brian Forger was talking about.
They still won't know what the governor's going to do.
But they won't, but at least they'll know what the enrollment is, and they'll be able to give people a clue, is if, because there'll be a direct relationship between the enrollment and how much you would be paying.
That's also gonna
And
be,
they'll be like, if say if Newbury's enrollment next year doubled, decreased, and ours went half, then we would be in the kind of the same situation we are in right now. But if there's more parity in, say, Raleigh's numbers, enrollment wise, don't spike, don't decrease as much as Newbury's, then we can say that, then that we'll probably get a more of an equal slice in what we'll be responsible for cost wise. But so there's a lot of different variables to look at, and that's what the superintendent was saying at the last meeting, that's why they couldn't really have early meetings, because they had no clue or no idea, what the state was going to be paying, and what, because of this convoluted formula that they figured out, they had no idea what the assessment's going to be. But a rolling average, they'll be able to have a more likely outcome and prediction for it. So
that's going to be a
that's
very
what they
hard sell.
have.
All 3 towns have to approve it.
I know.
And-
Well, but it's really, I think, the best way to go. I mean, because look at how we're getting hit this year. It's very it's unfair for us.
And Salisbury
You know,
was a
and-
few years back, so it kind of rotates around.
Actually,
It's just our turn right now that we're getting hit the honors.
well, Salisbury's
year.
getting hit a little harder than we are.
Well, they have
Their
a larger
assess-
budget.
Yeah.
Their
But they have a-
assessment's a little higher than ours.
Yeah, but their
But percentage
percentages.
wise, we're paying.
Yeah,
we're
we're
paying
paying more.
higher. We're paying more.
But I think back to the comment, and maybe it was just hypothetical, if if $1 million was reduced, it would only reduce our assessment by X amount. But I think that they should look to see what can be reduced, if there are options there. And,
Yeah, I mean,
mean, 'cause
that's
200,000
the
is
whole
Is a
crux of the problem, is that enrollment is going down.
Not just not just Triton schools, all over enrollment
Right,
is going
right.
down, but still we have
But,
fixed cost, and that doesn't go down. And what,
Well-
if you talk,
yeah, because I would,
Fixed costs should go down.
oh, I don't,
why, how will
how, I
fix
mean, no one's salary goes down, they may reduce, but people's salaries still go up that stay.
you got to consider that teachers' salaries probably make up about close to 70% of the budget.
Yeah, I mean,
if the fact is-
80% of,
80%, yeah.
Yeah, if the fact is that you're going to get a normal 2.5, that's kind
Who
of
gets
reasonable.
2.5% increase?
That's what they get. Well,
That's
that's
what
what
their
you get the
contracts-
contract
That's what I
saying.
mean,
The
but that's
teachers,
not fair.
the teachers' contracts are one of the,
Well,
they're
the-
the strongest
But
union.
last year, the town employees got at least a 2%.
Yeah, but you just look, I don't know how you felt, but
Yeah.
my taxes went sky high this year.
Oh, mine did too.
So did mine,
And
yeah.
now we're
All
gonna
this.
go for overrides.
Yeah,
And
well,
cost of living for social security people was 0. There was no increase
yeah, I
at
know,
all.
I know.
And the town has a lot of elderly that are on fixed incomes.
I think there's gonna be a migration if this
Well,
things
you know what,
continue.
if the thing is, I don't want to go sound like an advocate, but if education is really important thing, that's what draws people into towns. If you want to have, the schools, decline and they have like 25, students per teacher in each class, you're not going to have, the school is not going to be so desirable.
But if you
People,
don't have a
you know,
police department and a
Well-
fire department and a highway department that can work,
Well,
you're gonna have a problem too, Peter. and that's what's gonna happen.
Exactly.
No, well, I'm
You
not.
know, I mean,
You gotta look at it,
you're
at
I
both
am,
sides.
but
you're
I
trading
think-
off, you know, the school versus police
Everything
and
else.
fire.
But the reality
You know.
is that we have so much money, or we go for an override. So we have virtually no power with this, I mean, if two towns are gonna vote.
If two towns vote and we don't vote and they vote, you know,
We're
Newbury,
forced to do
Newbury
it.
is gonna make out, so
Yeah.
you know they're gonna vote for it. In Salisbury, they have different situation, they get other money, so they'll probably go in, and then our pants are gonna be hanging down, because you know what's gonna happen? We're gonna have a contingency plan after that that's gonna just decimate everything if, you know, in the budget, if we're not being kind of realistic about what's gonna happen
But
there too.
But
I
if
don't
you-
think we need to resign ourselves to this is the budget and we just accept it. I think that the tactic should be, we need you to look to take out anything that you can to lower everyone's as much as,
But
But they're not gonna
Right.
find a
But I
million
mean,
dollars.
last meeting I gave you this copy here, which shows, you know, what what their anticipated revenue was, and they expect a decrease in their revenue from 16 to 17 by $45,000. So they're not expecting any new revenue at all. And then their expenditures comes to 938,420, whatever it is. But when you look at each of the expenditures, the biggest things are like special ed and raises and you know, a few other small things that, you know, there's 25 here, 25 there. Even if they cut all that out and said, we're not gonna go 900,000, Rowley's still gonna be assessed with, 300 some odd thousand,
Yeah,
which
it
is
was-
probably 100,000 more than we have.
You're not
Right.
gonna find $1 million.
There's
to
no
cut.
way this
no,
budget's
not out
gonna
of the rally.
change.
No, but any that can be reduced.
Yeah,
Is
but
that
The
much?
only thing we can hope for is to try to change the formula. You know, that rolling in formula is something that should be looked at. I'm not sure it would be approved, because it has to be a unanimous approval from all three towns, not just two. And if one town, and it has to be done every year. So if for 1 year they decide, hey, we don't wanna do it, we go back to this formula here, which is not working clearly. I mean, the state hasn't increased the Chapter 70 funding for from what I hear, more than 10 years. So you have this ridiculously low base assessment, and then everything else has to be made up with the towns. And until that changes, nothing's gonna change for Rowley, for Salisbury, or for Newbury. So,
yeah, we might be the victims this year, but who knows?
Yeah.
Who will it be the fall? You know, I remember when Newbury got whacked,
Yeah.
and I remember it happened. You know, so I think everybody, if you're a manager and you want to plan a budget, I think this foundation thing, which is way out of whack, has to be thrown out the window now. We have to go with a rolling average, basically,
Yeah.
which is more predictable. You know, at least
I
we know
agree.
each town knows what their enrollment is. You know, get rid of this nonsense about the foundation and stuff like that.
but what are we gonna do this year? I mean,
I know
Right.
this
just,
year
I think
we
we have to sit here and as the selectman said last night, you know, we have to probably live with it. And I don't know whether we can live with it, because I don't know if we all understand the impact that's gonna be to this town. I think it's gonna be devastating. I mean, I'm sure it's gonna obviously affect the fire and police station complex, because if you got an override for schools and for the fire and police, which we definitely need, you know, if we had to choose one, I would say that probably school is the most important, because at least you're getting grant money
You're
back
getting
from
funding,
the state
25,
to
30%
improve the
matching
school. You
funds.
can't, and
Right.
we only have a window of 1 year, I think, to get that going. Otherwise, they're just gonna put us on the bottom of the list, and it'll go to
We'll
somebody
lose it.
else. So
And
that's
that's only the beginning.
and with the water rates the way they are and the tax rates the way they are, I'm not sure even the school would pass. So I mean,
Yeah.
I hope that that's not true. But you know, where does it leave the fire and police again? I mean, you go up to Salisbury, you see this beautiful library up there that they've got. You know, they have with a new town hall or whatever. You know, other towns are growing and doing things, and every time we get to the point of wanting to do something that we're far behind in need, we can't do it because
You know,
of the school.
This
So I
is
don't
just
know.
food for thought and just throwing this out there. I mean, there are other states, they do have regional fire, regional police stations and stuff like that. So I don't know, I mean, if it's getting so bad like it is right now, and it's getting worse and worse every year, and nobody has an increase to, you know, the increased taxes or pass overrides, you know, this is the new reality now. I don't
Yeah, but
see any,
regional fire
problem.
stations won't work, because you you know, Newbury, Triton, and Salisbury are big, huge areas. I mean, you'd have to build stations
Yeah,
in all
each
the
town
towns
would have
anyway. And
substations.
so, why would all the towns agree to pay for that? You
And
know what
I
I'm saying?
don't know
Well-
if you've been reading in the paper, but they have the Regional Communication Center, and the Amesbury and Topsfield have both said that it's not working.
Yeah.
That it's being
Yeah.
sent to the wrong places, and
I mean, it works in rural New York and towns like that where, you know, they don't have any, you know, the population isn't as much, but
But we don't really, I mean, I don't know, I'm not getting into anything, but we don't seem to have too much in the way of fires or things and arrests.
yeah, but you get a
If
fire,
most of
you
them
want
are
somebody
people
there.
who have drugs and, you know, arrested for drinking and stuff like that. I don't think, we don't have, I mean, knock on wood, we don't have a huge drug problem
But
in
you
this
still gotta
town,
respond to
but,
these
you have to
things, you know?
respond.
you know, yeah,
I mean, I
know.
was at the fire station the other day, and they've been out on over 90 calls already this year.
Mm. Yeah.
They're going out 3 or 4 times a day.
No,
But I do agree with, you know, what you said, that when push comes to shove and we have overrides on the ballot,
Mm.
the school's likely gonna get,
Get it?
Even
if-
if, with
if-
all the other
if
things that
anything,
we're
right,
hit with.
it's gonna be the school.
So, I mean,
But I guess back to this letter, I mean,
it's
it's kinda, it's, like I said before, there's certain things like special education that it just is what it is. So it's taking these numbers just as numbers. I don't think it's an accurate comparison. But I would also say that, I mean, I think we need to, well, I personally would take a more positive, kind of try to bolster communication and
well, the school committee
But
took
the
offense to the selectmen's letter. They basically
positive
told-
approach, and Dave Peterson tried that with a very upbeat presentation at the district communications meeting, and it fell on deaf ears.
No, I was at that meeting, and you know, Dave Peterson was saying that he didn't think that they were that open, you know, what way the things were going, and this, you know, because we didn't have any communications meeting up until last week, and as I mentioned, that's when they had mentioned that because they didn't have any hard numbers, they didn't really have anything to talk about, and I think what Dave was talking about before was when, well, at least this is what they said, when his wife was a chairperson, they used to have a lot of informal discussions, but they weren't open to everybody. And you know, in the school committee chairperson was saying that if they're going to have any meetings at all and discuss the budget, that it would have to be in an open forum like we have now. We're not going
The
to
open
be
meeting
having
laws.
we're not going to be having
No, it's-
discussions about this to one person or this to another. So, but they did
Right,
also
but I mean,
say
they weren't having the meetings.
I know, but that's because they didn't have anything to. They didn't have many numbers to go on to have any.
But Peter, if
meetings
they're
and stuff
supposed
like
to
that.
have them 4 times a year,
I
they
know,
should have
but-
had them 4
I know,
times a
but
year.
they didn't. Well, I don't know exactly when they were privy to when they knew any
But for
discussion,
any-
but they.
It doesn't just necessarily have to be the budget. It's communication with the town and the school.
Yeah, but it's primarily when you're on the finance committee, you're representing. That's what you are
But
talking
I'm-
about the budget.
But
you
I'm
know,
saying
stuff like that.
communication, open communication.
I know, but maybe
with-
that's a misnomer because
Well-
primarily you're there to talk about financial, budgetary matters. That's what it's all about, and
But
you know.
the
and-
funding from the state is a portion of the budget, and granted, it's a critical part of it, but they still would have to know what they were looking for, like, there's what their salary increases would be, I know they can't talk about how it would be, what the final number would be, but they had to have had some information or start talking about budgets.
Exactly.
Yeah, but then again, the assessment is really what really the town really is the, it's
But
the
if
big
you
nut,
compare
you know.
cost budget to budget, year to year,
Mhm.
of what their operating costs are, that's.
But still, yeah, you can talk about that, but still, the assessment is the biggest overriding thing that's
But
really
it's-
affects each town. I mean, for example, the budgets went up, it seems like the school every year goes up about 2.5% to 3%. So it really, the pendulum is really, really centered on how everybody gets assessed. That's the biggest thing. If we were getting Newberry's numbers, which they had like negative something, we would be happy. We wouldn't even be talking about
Well, I
this.
don't agree
But
with
Not
this
that.
is-
necessarily
Well, I'm
so.
just, okay, I'm being a little bit dramatic here, but I'm just
Yeah.
trying to make my point that it really is, the assessment is the biggest thing that, I mean, if you consider that a normal rate on the budget, and I've been following the Triton budgets year to year, they average between 2.5% and 3% every year.
But keep in
So if
mind,
you
the tax
figure
rate
that-
can only go up 2%.
Yeah, 2.5%, 2.5%.
So
Yeah.
if they're taking 3%, and
Well,
I hate the word
two-
taking, but if they're looking for a 3% increase
Well-
every year, that's more than,
Yeah,
And
well,
we can up the taxes.
Right.
right, but I don't know if, okay, but.
but see, that's the difference, is that they're
Mhm.
operating over here,
Yeah,
and yet we're forced to operate here, and there's like no connection between the two. I
No,
mean,
I
if
don't
they
know.
operated with the 2.5%, with the mindset that we really need to figure out how to stay within 2.5%,
mhm, well,
And, for the last 5+ years, we've been in a depression,
mhm.
recession, economic downturn, whatever you want to call it.
Mhm.
Wages haven't gone up.
Yeah, I think, I
You know,
don't remember
it's-
now, but I think there was a year that the teachers didn't get, I think they got like a 1% one year, or a couple of those years. Now that you're talking about that, I don't remember the
You know,
specifics, but we
I,
would have.
I don't know because those figures aren't available to the public.
Why
So,
wouldn't they be?
ask the Triton,
Why, they told you they weren't available?
they haven't been available.
I don't know, I think you could, I think anything that's.
Anything that's
the school is
contractual, I
gonna
think
be
would be
available if you,
available.
I mean,
You look at their budget numbers and, it's not there.
I don't know, I mean, I'm sure if you ask the superintendent or something, or somebody, you could get, you could get a copy of their contracts too, the teachers' contracts. That shouldn't,
Oh,
shouldn't be
absolutely.
a secret,
Absolutely, you
you
can
know.
get that. That's public information.
That's no secret,
Brian would give you that if you asked him.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just saying is that the budgets seem like they've been going 2.5, 3, not to 3, but 2.6, 2.7, so I don't know, I mean,
Well, this year's budget is 3.38%.
increase?
Yes.
Yes. Where's the logic behind it?
I don't know, I mean, if it's.
There's granted
I mean, there is
special education.
Special ed and things like that that cause.
you can, push that,
Mhm.
type of a thing, but it doesn't account for the 3.38%.
Well, I mean, I don't know if you take out the special ed and, which is a big budget line buster, I don't know, I mean, I think that the teacher's contract was 2.5% increase, and then, 2%, and whatever their steps are, whatever their increases there, but, I mean, it's tough, I mean, like I said, the school is, I mean, even if you cut like $1 million off the top, and that would really, I mean, like I said, they're laying off about, they're laying off 2
Yeah,
language
fine.
teachers,
You know,
and they're laying off 4
know.
in the elementary schools. You're
cut the
still-
budget by $1 million.
Well, then you really
or-
gonna,
They really
gonna be
wanted
whacked
3.3
and stuff
million,
like
that's
that.
what they wanted to run the school, that's what they said, that their budget, they would have liked, if they had their wish list like we would like to have our wish list, it was up in the, over $3 million.
And then,
And they reduced it down to 900 and something. And most of it's salary, I mean, if you look at the sheet, 967,544 it includes 57,000 for 2% non-union raises, includes all union movement, includes superintendents, changes, includes salary contingency of 131,000, or 52%, 0.52% of the payroll, includes assumed TRTA column movement, $60,000 includes assumed movement of about 195,000 salaries from choice to GF, whatever that is. So I mean, you can see that it's just, the only way you're gonna reduce it is reduce people. I mean, we have to might have to reduce people on our side. I mean, if you reduce teachers on that side, you affect programs and learning, and I mean, I don't understand the full gamut of schools, but I mean, it's very complicated, and there's an education process that we have to have for our kids in order for the school to function. But I mean, I think maybe they could do larger class sizes, and that would kind of reduce a couple more teachers. But are we going to get to $1 million? I don't think so.
Larger class sizes is what the trend, but I mean, it's still,
So-
it's not as,
I think just
don't
our
know.
concentration here is what's going to happen. I mean, we should start thinking about this, and not just
I mean, it's gonna kill us
Put our heads in
either
the sand
way. I
for a
don't know.
while.
I mean, it's a lot of money that I mean, I don't know. I mean, you can't reasonably expect that we're gonna be able to cut $1 million from the school. I mean, so.
Mhm.
So what's the next move? I mean.
I think, but to me, the issue is that this isn't new, the whole topic of the school and what their increases are annually. It's, I'm not aware of any effort on their part to help, to work towards reducing overhead costs.
Well, like I said, they're cutting off about 6 teachers. Isn't that an effort to when you're laying off 6 teachers?
No, because that's,
Uh,
that's not the type of effort I would be looking for. I would be looking for ways to cut expenses, to pull back expenses, not salary, but expenses
I know,
within
but
there.
Like what,
80%,
busing? I mean,
80%.
it would have to be something significant, not
Yeah.
turning off lights
But
and stuff like that.
But it's all incremental, so you start with
Yeah.
something, and like I said before, the whole insurance, insurance is huge. It has to be a huge part of their budget.
But they negotiated, or they said they were negotiating their health insurance to be 0%. They weren't anticipating that to go up
Yeah,
at
they
all.
did.
which
They
is-
should be
These-
looking to change the ratio of
Yeah,
employer
so-
versus
'cause
employee
it's
and
70-30.
retirement.
Right.
It's 70-30 for teachers. I mean, that's
Well,
a big,
That's generous.
yeah. So that's a good
So
point.
that's the-
That's
those
a,
are
I
the
thought it was
things.
75. It's,
Well,
No, I think
I
they said
certainly
70,
don't know how
30.
generous that is, because, a lot of state contracts, it's like 75-25, from us,
not-
so.
But
Maybe the towns a little bit differently. They have been,
In
like, I know,
private.
like Raleigh, and like they have, what is it, a 60-40 or
No.
something
No,
like
it's
that?
50-49 or
50-40.
something.
49.
But what I'm saying is, but
Yeah.
the teachers are in a powerful teaching contract. You're talking about messing with a very powerful group, so you have to be kind of cognizant of that fact too, that, I mean, it's, it is what it is.
When you're in the
so-
middle of a
But-
contract, you
You
really,
know,
you
from-
can't
Well,
change it
But
in
you
the
can't
middle.
have it both ways. You can't continue to increase your budget and not have any fallback from that. And then you can't keep saying, well, we'll have to cut teachers, and then that be the that be like awful. So you have to control your budgets.
No, I realize.
So-
but we have no
that.
control over that.
I'm
And
not
so-
saying we,
yeah,
I'm
so,
saying
yeah.
the
Yeah.
school.
But I mean, they hear that
Yeah.
from whether it's Raleigh this year or Salisbury next year, or whatever. Their mindset is, when they came before us, the 3 members from Raleigh, they said their job is to educate the kids, and I agree. But I would hope that they would think of the towns, and I really do think this year they looked at that assessment and they tried the best they could to get Raleigh to where it is, which is unacceptable. But
I mean, I think you'd have to go to some of the meetings to kind of appreciate more. I mean, what's her name, the chairperson? They really do seem like that they're trying to, juggle 2 things, trying to provide, a good education for our kids, and also trying to realize that, towns, are very tight
I don't think they
money-wise
realize
and
that at
stuff.
all.
Well, you have to
Not
really
their
go to the
attitude.
meetings and
Listen
to make
some
that
of
kind
them.
of
Their attitude
statement,
is,
but, no, I
it's
just-
the school or nothing.
I kind of disagree.
Do you know what percent of the budget goes for salaries?
Well, it's close to
80%.
So
you know.
basically, you've got,
That's where you need to
and
go.
a lot of that is contractual.
Yeah.
So then you get the other 20% is for building upkeep, sports, transportation. Technology is a big factor. If you
Yeah.
do not keep up with technology,
You
and
want
if a few
computers.
years later, the kids fall behind compared to other communities. So really, we really only have that 20% to play with.
Yeah, no, I think it's,
Because anything that's contractually negotiated, if you can convince the teachers, et cetera, for the next contract, and I don't know when that is, what year they are in their contract, what is it, a 3-year contract? That they have
Typically.
here? So are they in the first, second, or third year? I don't think you're gonna go anywhere, then, till you get to the end or near the end of the current contract. And then if the 3 towns can negotiate something with the teachers' unions.
No, they can't.
Well, I'm just saying, perhaps they can. I mean, somebody's gonna negotiate, Sharon.
The school
the
committee,
school committee is the only one that can
The only one
negotiate
can.
with the
we have no
teachers'
say.
contracts.
Well, but we can talk, convince our school committee members from each
No.
community.
They don't
They don't
represent
represent
us.
They don't
Right.
report to
They
the
don't
finance
represent
committee.
us.
They represent all towns.
Yeah.
No.
They're not just Raleigh, all towns vote for them.
Back to the letter. I mean, I think I shared with Larry at the meeting, I had a letter that I was gonna read that night at the district communications. And I held back after listening to what was said and the reaction that they took to the selectmen's letter. I felt that putting anything else in the negative or trying to explain to them what they should be doing would be counterproductive. I don't think the writing was there. You could see they were very open on what they needed, and even our selectmen, I think, saw that and said, really, I mean, how much more can we chip away at this to really benefit us? There's nothing. So, I mean, I withdrew my letter. I didn't even say it, but, if you want to say it, Larry, I mean, I think it's fine. I think it's just going to get them upset again, and I'm not sure we're going to get anything out of it other than maybe venting some steam again. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
But all I would suggest if you're going to do it is I timed you. It was like 5.5 minutes, 6
Yeah, I was
minutes.
gonna
You
say,
got to be in
it's
3, so
not
you got to
gonna-
talk faster.
Right.
It's not gonna do it.
Or get somebody else to give me some minutes. But
I mean, I don't care. What do you think? Do you think do we want to?
no, I mean, I personally will read the letter.
But you're signing it as the chairman of the Raleigh Finance Committee. So that's
I
the
will
issue.
change that to a private citizen. I mean, I have no qualms about that. It would maybe carry more weight, but at this point, I don't think, even from the finance committee, it's going to do anything as far as what their budget is concerned.
What I
And that's the disheartening.
mean, what you
part
could do is you could
of-
say that as a Raleigh resident,
Right.
and I'm also a member of the Finance Committee, so that they know that it's really coming from you, but the weight behind it is that you're also looking at it on behalf of the Finance Committee.
Right.
Without, us endorsing it, I guess, or whatever.
But
Right.
that kind of misleads. It makes it seem like the finance
Well, they all know
committee's
who Larry is
endorse-
anyway, so I mean, if you say
You know,
something, I mean,
I
they
don't
know
know.
where it's coming from.
No, I mean, I have no qualms about presenting the letter as a private citizen and not as, a consensus of the finance committee.
Yeah,
That's
I think that's the way to go.
fine with
Is that
me.
the way you feel, Paul, on that?
Yeah,
That's
I
fine.
I can see it both ways.
No, and I respect your opinions, and I think you know, I'll present it as a private citizen and, you know,
And borrow somebody else's minutes.
right.
I mean, I think the school committee knows, I mean, I think everybody knows the drill. Everybody knows that the towns basically have to work with in Proposition 2.5. I mean, that's not anything new, so, I mean, so you would think if, you know, there's all these noteworthy programs, you would think that maybe the teachers would want to tighten their belt a little bit, maybe not get a 2%, maybe get a 1.5%, but now, you know, you're talking, that's very tough because I think it's a given that they, you know, expect at least when we're not in a recession, you know, we're not in a recession now, and I think that they consider 2% a normal cost of living increase, you know, I mean.
Well, you look at,
And,
as I said,
from,
with the senior citizens, it was zero.
I know,
There's
I know.
no cost of living there this year.
Well, I
And
know
it's
that, and I
because
think
of-
that's,
But you don't wanna lose
I
good
think that's
teachers
unfair.
either.
I don't think the Social Security should,
My wife's
you
No,
know.
but I'm just saying
you
that,
know.
that's what the state,
2, 3,
the
and 2.
Yeah, I
the
know.
United States of America says there was zero cost of living.
So
I know.
So,
Yeah.
if you're getting the
But
cost
nobody
of-
gets, I mean.
Well, but theirs is contractual, so that was
Yeah.
negotiated years ago.
Yeah, I realize that, but I'm just
I
saying that,
Knew what the economy would be doing.
But I don't know, it's tough thing because
Yeah, it's,
You know,
there's
it
no good
really-
answer.
it really is. I mean, you could look for, maybe find some things, but you're not gonna, in our case, you have to find $1 million or more, and I don't know, you know, that's gonna, you
No,
know, from,
to me, we have to send them a message to look for
But is
it
the,
because, you know, the money's not there.
is
you know.
the message to be conveyed that, you know, we need to do what you can to help us for this year, but more importantly, you know, going forward, we need to know that
$1
there
million, huh, let's see,
it's
with
closer
fringe
to a 2%
benefit and
increase year to
compensation,
year.
we be talking. Laying off, probably have more teachers to get to that number.
For $1 million?
Besides, yeah, for $1 million, 12.5 teachers.
How did you come with that number?
Because I'm using an average
Okay.
rate of 80,000, that's the number that they use, that includes fringe benefits and stuff. Taking that number and dividing by $1 million, it comes out to 12.5
Yeah, I'd like to
FTEs.
earn 80,000.
What's that?
I'd like to earn 80,000.
Well, I mean, the teachers, that's what they get, I mean, they get more than that, the city of Boston teachers.
Yeah, but I
get
mean,
about
you know, if you look at other
125,000, you know.
school districts that don't have a assistant principal at every school, a
Well, no, they
you know,
consolidated that too, I'm not,
you know
they-
chief.
They have assistant principal at the Triton High School, but that person also is the director of the guidance department too, so they combine some of the jobs over there, you know, now.
I'm sure there was some
Some,
additional money given there too for the added job, but I had a question on one of the things you're stating here, which I was unaware, and I'm not sure, about the stadium. If they
Yes.
don't put the bleachers in, do you know for a fact that they would have to go back for a vote?
Yes, because you know on the warrant article, it specifically said for a stadium, and you know if
How do you
they
declare, how do you define a stadium? I mean,
well. If you look at
Coliseum?
Webster's dictionary, you know, a stadium is, you know,
Bleachers.
yes, has bleachers, has seats. Basically, you know, if you do away with the bleachers and all, you know, you have a glorified cow pasture with chalk lines on it.
Plus, they wouldn't be able to get any revenue, and that was part of the
Right.
formula they have is they're supposed to get revenue for you know, for renting out the the field for other venues and stuff, so they
We're
will
gonna
have
find out
revenue
pretty
coming
fast,
in.
because that bid opening is supposed to be, what, March 2nd, I believe? At the beginning of March, I think it was
Next
March
week.
2nd.
Right.
Is the opening of the bids, so that's where we're gonna find out whether, you know, they need to cut anything else out, but it'd be interesting, you know, that issue, when I saw that, I didn't think of
Yeah.
that, you know?
Plus, also, I mean, you know, they're investigating the federal government. I think is looking into the use of ground up tires.
Yeah, I heard that.
Yeah, I heard that,
Uh, you know,
Big
as
problem.
far as you know, a problem with younger kids ingesting the stuff and stuff like that. So, you know, it's
You fall on it with your mouth open.
Yeah.
You got a chin guard, right?
you know, so it's
I was reading or listening to a report, and they said the kids fall and they come up covered with it.
Larry, I just had one comment on your letter. When you read it, it struck me when you, at the very beginning, you said for a decreased enrollment of 815 students. It sounded like the enrollment of Rowley students fell by 815, when in fact it's really fallen by 297. I think what you wanted to say is we had 1,112 students, and we now have 815 students. So
Okay.
I would just say, I would delete the word decreased, and people will see, because they saw that we originally had 1,112, and now we're down to 815. So you'd say for an enrollment of 815 students.
okay.
That threw me off, because then I says, wait a minute, we can't have 297 students.
Right.
You want to say they have 815 now, right? Do you see what I mean?
Yeah, you can either change that number to the
Yes.
297 or whatever that number is, or.
If you want to say the enrollment is decreased by 297 students, or I would just take the word decreased out, because then it'll show, people will see that it originally was 1112 and it's now 815, which they'll know that's a lower number.
Okay.
Yeah, I
It's
think
just a
that's right.
suggestion, yeah.
Yep.
It threw me off when you read it the first time.
That'll take 2 seconds off my presentation. Okay. Shall we move on and let's see. I don't have anything on the monthly appropriations report.
That's because it's not time for it yet.
Right,
We already did.
we just did it 2
We
weeks
were
ago,
Right,
We're not monthly,
yeah.
right.
so too early.
So we'll
Table that.
table that until next week.
The budget's starting to come in.
The water budget has come in. I imagine some of the other,
That's the only one I've seen at the selectmen's meeting.
right. Other ones will be coming in. So, let's see what we can set for the next meeting. I'm gonna try for the 15th of March.
Do we start meeting weekly at that point?
You know, we'll probably be meeting twice a week then.
Twice a week? We don't usually do twice a week if we do weekly. If we start on the second Tuesday, the 9th, the 8th rather.
You wanna go for the 8th?
I
Well,
would
if budgets are coming
come
in.
in, yeah, I think we should go for the 8th.
Okay.
See how they come and how they work.
So Tuesday, the 8th.
But we'll need some direction on how we're proceeding.
Well, didn't we do one year, didn't we kind of like take, I mean, they get some direction, I guess, for level funding, but some of the departments are still coming in, adding people, et cetera, so, I mean, I think whatever the selectmen are approving, we're basically looking at that package, and then if we
Right.
have to cut, they
We
might
have
have
to
to
go
come
back.
back again
Yeah.
and revisit all the budgets and then cut wherever we need to cut, or
That's
wherever
what's
they
gonna
think need to be
happen,
cut.
Are we also gonna have some people come in, let's say like Mary Beth did last year? Or are we okay now with the water department with the way they're submitting their budgets, that we don't need them to come in?
Oh, they need
Oh, I
to
see
come
what
in.
you're
saying.
Oh,
Coming
they
in.
need to
No, most all the major departments will be coming in.
So we'll need to notify them
Right.
so that they'll be
Right.
here. Okay.
Okay, so March 8th, 7:15.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Have a
Make a motion, we adjourn?
I'll second that motion.
all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And we are adjourned.
So no one-